So the awesome thing about the 6 for 60 Lifestyle Makeover Program, and the reason you're going to be losing copious amounts of weight if that's your goal, or getting much, much healthier, is not because you're going to be counting every calorie you eat. It's not because you're going to be restricting your diet so much so that you can't enjoy a dinner out with your friends, or a party, or a holiday gathering. The reason you're going to be getting such great results is because you're going to be avoiding just certain things that are going to put your hormones into a certain balance that's going to allow you to be healthier than you ever thought possible. Balancing your hormones in this way is going to help you to optimize your genetics and be the healthiest person that you can possibly be. Okay, because it's all about your hormones. When I stopped focusing on the amount of food I ate and started focusing on how the foods that I ate affected the hormone balance that I had, that's when I got healthier, that's when I started losing weight. Okay, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about those hormones. I know that sounds like a dry subject, and I used to work with junior high kids, so no, I'm not talking about those type of hormones. Okay, I'm talking about metabolically active hormones. Hormones that are affected by our environment, in this case, by the foods that we eat. Okay, so the first and foremost one we're going to talk about is insulin. Insulin is a hormone. These hormones we either want to optimize, it means make sure that they're functioning really well in our body, or we want to mediate, which means that we want to make sure that they're not running wild. We want to keep an eye on them, okay? Insulin is a hormone we definitely want to mediate. Its action is to remove sugar or glucose from the bloodstream. So if we eat a cookie, insulin spikes, and its job then is to get that sugar out of the bloodstream. It also stores fat. Okay, that's something we don't really want. A lot of us that are doing this program, if you're like a third of the country are obese, or 2/3 of the country are overweight, we don't want a hormone that stores our fat. Okay, so we want to definitely mediate this hormone so we can start burning some of that stored fat. How do we optimize or mediate it? So we want to mediate it, so we mediate it by reducing dietary carbohydrates. Carbohydrate is a fancy word for sugar, and the main sources of carbohydrates that we get in our diet are from processed sugars, things like sodas, and added sugar to foods and processed foods. Biggest source we get is from grains, okay, and the next biggest source is probably from legumes or beans or things like that, okay? Those are things we want to mediate so that we quit storing fat, okay? It comes from our pancreas. If you ever heard of pancreatic cancer, that's like, unfortunately, it's like a death sentence if you find out a loved one has pancreatic cancer. So one of the best ways you can take care of your pancreas and not get things like diabetes or pancreatic cancer is to mediate the hormone insulin, okay? So, next one we're going to talk about is leptin. Leptin is also very important, and leptin actually, instead of mediating, we want to optimize it. We want to make sure the leptin is functioning as well as it possibly can. Because leptin actually lets you know when you are full and tells you to stop eating and helps you to use fat from your fat stores. Okay, those are all kind of awesome things. Leptin is definitely your friend. Okay? How do we optimize leptin? Well, we do it by reducing lectins. Lectins are toxins or anti-nutrients found in predominantly things like grains, like wheat, barley, rice, a lot of things like that. So we want to reduce the amount of lectins we're getting, so we reduce the amount of grains that we're eating. We want to mediate insulin. So we want to, again, mediate this insulin, so we do that by reducing dietary carbohydrate. Another good way of doing that is by cutting out grains, okay? We also want to decrease omega-6 fatty acids. Okay? Omega-6 are the pro-inflammatory fatty acids, the ones that increase inflammation, and the leading cause of death in the world, no matter who you ask, is underlying the cause of that is inflammation. So we want to decrease the amount of inflammation we have overall. So omega-6s aren't good at any rate, but they also cause us to be leptin resistant. So we want to decrease the amount of omega-6 fatty acids we get. We get omega-6 fatty acids from oils that we get from grains like canola or sunflower or safflower oil. Industrial seed oils, that's a big blanket name. We want to reduce those. Okay. We also want to reduce the amount of highly processed milk we drink because there's a lot of omega-6 in that. High-fat dairy is good, but we want to reduce the amount of highly processed milk we get. The most processed milk product you can get is skim milk. We want to reduce that in our diet, okay? So we can optimize leptin. Leptin comes from our fat cells in our stomach. So our fat cells in our stomach basically are stretching, and they're saying, "We've had enough. Stop feeding us." Or we need to store. We need to use some of the energy we've stored and quit eating. Okay, that's leptin's job, is saying stop eating, start burning some of this fat. When we're eating tons of grains, tons of sugar, and we're eating tons of omega-6 fatty acids from industrialized seed oils, those messages aren't getting to our brain, and we physically can't shut off our appetite. So by optimizing leptin and mediating insulin, you're going a long ways in getting yourself to a point where you're eating right. And if you're having trouble eating this way right now, there's no wonder, because your hormones are way out of balance. Okay, so by focusing on optimizing these, you're going to be feeling and functioning a lot better, and you're going to be looking a lot better doing it. Thanks. We'll see you in the next video, to be continued.